Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. It's Dr. Kelly from Discovery Health, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about going gluten-free. So I posted a scrumptious little picture yesterday to entice you a little bit. So I hope you saw that. I know some of you asked for the recipe, and I'll work on getting that to you. I'll post that soon. I want to make it look a little bit nicer. I took a recipe from somebody else and I modified it to meet my needs. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk to you about today, changing some things in your day-to-day habits. It is not hard to go gluten-free. I mean, look at all this stuff that I have here just to show you some examples of just how easy it is to go gluten-free. You don't have to eat a bunch of junk. You don't have to starve yourself. Good morning, Celeste. Nice to see you on this Monday morning. So don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to share as well, because you know how many other people need to hear this kind of information. Going gluten-free is not a fad. There are some people who get deathly ill when they eat gluten, and they're diagnosed with something called celiac disease. Now, you do not have to be a celiac to start avoiding gluten, but it will tremendously improve your health. I'm gluten-free because I have autoimmune disease. My husband is gluten-free because he has asthma. And so those are just two simple, very common issues that respond very well when you cut gluten out of your diet. So I'm going to give you the easy, fast tips, things that you need to know. And I've actually written them all out on a nice pamphlet. If you'd like to have this in writing, I'd like you to go to my website, drkellyfelmer.com, and you can sign up for the email listserv there, and I will send you a copy of Going Gluten-Free and how easy it is. So thanks for joining me this morning, and let's get started. The first thing that you have to understand is, what is gluten? Otherwise, what are you avoiding? You don't even know, right? So the top things, and I'm going to tell you the next step is going to be a bit confusing, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. And actually, the way manufacturers label things is to make it easier to understand, but yet at the same time, they complicate it because it's not 100% true. What I want you to start to avoid to improve your gut, to improve your immune system, to decrease your flare of autoimmune disease, your MS, your Hashimoto's, your Graves' disease, things like that. Even bad infections because of the gut. All those types of things can be related to eating gluten in your diet. So I'm here to tell you it's not a fad, because a fad just means, oh, we're doing it because somebody said we should do it, and there's really no purpose behind it. There is absolute purpose behind going gluten-free. But at the same time, if you just start buying a whole bunch of gluten-free stuff, you can still have a lot of junk. I mean, this table is full of a lot of snacky type things, and that's what typically helps us make it a little bit easier. The in-between meals, I need something on the go, so those are the things I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. But to avoid gluten, I want you to cut out wheat, barley, and rye. Those are the three top culprits that disrupt your GI tract. They cause permeability or a leaky gut. They trigger autoimmune disease. Wheat, barley, and rye. Those are the three main ingredients. If you started anywhere, look for those three words on any ingredient list, and you want to start to avoid that. Now, wheat comes in a couple of different forms, though. So there's going to be names like spelt, durum, farro, kamut. All of those are actually just wheat. So sometimes there might be a different name on the label like that. Again, I have this written out for you if you're interested, drkellyfelmer.com, and you can have it in writing. There are a lot of great resources. Just Google it as well. You're going to find all the different names for wheat. But wheat is the most offensive. It's the most intolerated, okay? And all of these studies have come from people who are severely allergic, the celiac people. And this is where it gets confusing. The next step is actually all grains have some form of gluten in them. Gluten is a made-up term. It comes from a glutenin or a prolamine. Those are two proteins within grains, And the gluten form helps to make it sticky. It helps to hold it together. It's the glue that holds your bread together. So when the yeast makes it expand, it doesn't just fall apart. But it's that certain type of prolamine, gliadin, which is tied to wheat. So wheat has gliadin, which is a protein. And gliadin is very, very inflammatory, causes leaky gut, and makes celiac people react. If you're sensitive to wheat, if you're allergic to wheat, if you have autoimmune disease, you need to stay away from that because of gliadin. Okay, now I may have already lost you or confused you. Good morning, everybody. Natalie and Donna, Tim and Luda and Samantha, thank you so much for joining. That's the most complicated part of what I'm going to talk about today, and I know that can be confusing. Again, that's why I have it written out. Wheat, barley, and rye are the top things you want to avoid, but if you want to understand why, it's the protein in those in high concentrations that people can't tolerate. All grains have some form of that. Each grain has a different type of prolamine. Again, wheat has gliadin. When we test for celiac disease, you look for gliadin antibodies or reaction to that. So I tell you that because there are safe grains that you can have. Okay, you can have corn, although corn is typically genetically modified and it is pretty inflammatory, but you can get it organic. There are better forms. And technically, a celiac person can tolerate it okay. Now, you may be allergic to corn in different ways. Maybe corn still makes you flare. Well, then cut it out. But when we're talking about gluten-free in America, what does it mean? Wheat, barley, and rye. That's what it means. Corn is okay. Rice is okay. Millet and oats, sorghum, quinoa, teff, amaranth, buckwheat, tapioca, those would all be okay grains. But yet, if you start eating them and you don't feel well, I'd tell you to cut them out. They still have that type of protein. Okay, remember each one of those grains, they are slightly different, but they still have those proteins and they tend to have them in less concentrations. And the true test is against a celiac person who usually can tolerate those, but that doesn't mean that they all tolerate them, okay? So grains, if you don't feel good with grains, cut them all out. If you're just trying to be gluten-free, wheat, barley, and rye, and those other names for wheat, okay? I hope that makes sense. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Yes, Luda, I'm going to share a couple of different flours, and I'll give you my experience on that in just a minute. The next thing you need to start doing is read food labels, okay? So it's amazing when you find something that has a label on it and it says gluten-free. And I look at it and I go, well, that's always been gluten-free. How about we take a bunch of bananas and they put a label on it and say, oh, it's gluten-free. Well, no kidding. It never had gluten in it to begin with. Your whole foods, all of your vegetables and your fruits and your meats, those are never going to have gluten in them. Now, if you get it at a restaurant or some recipe that you make with it might have gluten added to it, but the basic fruits and vegetables and meats are never going to have gluten in them. So, wow, that's a lot of food. Every time somebody says to me, I can't go gluten-free, it's too hard. That's why I'm doing this video. It's not that hard. It's hard at first. It is always hard at first because you have to change. But now, my goodness, it was so easy to go grab examples of gluten-free things in my home because this is our lifestyle. So it's easy now. And I just don't ever choose those things with gluten. Even when we go out to eat, I just don't choose something with gluten. It's not hard. It's a no-brainer for me at this point. But if you can't get over that first hump to say I'm going to do it, then it'll always be hard. It's hard at first because you have to change. So read your food labels. You're looking for wheat and barley and rye. You're looking at the front of the product as well. Let's take this roll. It says gluten-free sandwich. Now I had it cut here. This is a roll that I'll use to make steakums or steak sandwiches. So I slice it in half and I open it up, I butter it, I put thinly sliced beef on there, spaghetti sauce, and then some mozzarella cheese. I toast it in the oven, and we have a steak sandwich, and it's gluten-free. So we really like to use these rolls. But when I first started getting these, okay, it said gluten-free on the front, but is it really? You always need to go to the back and read the ingredients and make sure. Especially if you've also had your food allergies tested, you might be allergic to something else in the product. So it doesn't mean everything on my table is safe for you, but I am giving you examples of things that are gluten-free. Okay? So make sure that you read the labels. And then I brought this plethora of stuff to show you there are gluten-free substitutes. Oh my gosh, who likes to snack on pretzels? This is one example of a gluten-free pretzel that I like. And it tastes good, and it's, you know, a good product. Now, is this healthy for me? Well, it's not necessarily unhealthy, but it's a snack. It's not a meal. It's not me eating my vegetables and my fruit and my meat. It's just a snack. I'm giving you healthy alternative snacks. The other thing that I like about their ingredient list is that it's not very long, okay? So one disadvantage of this particular brand is the first ingredient is cornstarch. Corn, like I mentioned, is okay. It is technically, in our view of the world, gluten-free, although corn is still a grain, and there may be people who are sensitive to corn. So I do try to do less corn in the family, but I'm pointing that out. It's something that is okay for me to have. It doesn't make me flare. I tolerate it well. I am not allergic to it. It's a good gluten-free product that tastes good. Other snacks, of course, nuts. It's an example of organic cashews. Yum! Okay, what a great snack. Gives me good fat, which is good for my brain energy. And there's nothing else added in there. It's just organic cashews. Granola bars. Granola bars are traditionally, the number one sold granola bars are full of sugar. Sugar, 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 sugar. Excuse me. So they're not very good for you at all. Plus they're full of gluten. I like these Kind bars. They give me a little bit of salty and sweet as well because there is some dark chocolate on there, a little bit of caramel. But they're mostly nuts and nuts and nuts. Okay, same thing with these Lar bars. I'll give you an example of that. A nice, good snack. And on the front, gluten-free, vegan, and dairy-free. Is it really? Double check the ingredient list. Dates and peanuts, first two ingredients. Then there are chocolate chips in here, and it gives me the ingredients of that. And then sea salt. That's it. That was it. That was like 4 things that I named in these Lar bars. My husband loves these because he doesn't eat the Kind bars because there's almond in there and he avoids almond. There's always an alternative. So those are good snacks. Here is one gluten-free flour that I use a lot. I also use Pamela's a lot. Pamela's has almond flour though. So again, we have an allergy to almond in the family. Namaste is great, although I'll tell you that everything I make with the Namaste tastes like a roll. Everything tastes like a bun. Now, if you're craving a bun, use the Namaste. It is thick and it is doughy. So when I make pancakes with Namaste, they are thick and they are doughy. And that's not really how we like to eat our pancakes around here. So I sometimes use other flours or we'll mix this with something else. But again, when you want rolls, Namaste is perfect because I swear everything tastes like a roll. I'm going to give you a couple of bread examples. Now, I haven't made this yet, but I'm going to make it because I want to make some of my own bread. We rotate through a couple of different breads here, and I want to start using my bread maker or making more of my own bread at home. And King Arthur's flour is often highly recommended. I actually have a book upstairs of gluten-free recipes, which I really love. I apologize I didn't bring that down to share with you, but they compare all of the different flour blends, and King Arthur is always on the top. And then one more thing that I wanted to show you from a bread standpoint is Sammy's bread. Sammy's bread you can find at Festival. You can find it at Woodman's. It's in the frozen section. But it's gluten-free. It's yeast-free. Remember, we've talked about candida. If you're allergic to candida, if you've got a yeast problem, avoid yeast. This is a great bread because there's no yeast in it. Actually, those donuts that I made yesterday, no yeast in them either. It is egg-free, dairy-free, yeast-free, gluten-free. This is a great bread. But at the same time, I'm tired of buying it and I'm looking for something new. So again, I'm just sharing with you. Yesterday, what I did was looked up another gluten-free flour blend, and I made my own to make those donuts. And I'm going to start making more bread that way as well. And hopefully the kids will eat it. So we've rotated through several different kinds. We used to eat a lot of Udi's bread, but it's very hard on the outside, and my kids all complained about that. So Sammy's has been very beneficial for us. Lasagna. I make lasagna gluten-free with rice noodles instead of wheat noodles. They turn out great. You just got to get used to working with the things. Have I made anything and it flopped? Yeah, absolutely. That's happened a lot too. Okay, so lots of gluten-free substitutes. And I've talked about how there's things that are naturally gluten-free, all of your fruits and vegetables, meat, poultry, fish, cheese, eggs, they're always gluten-free. So you are not going to be starving yourself when you go gluten-free. But I do hope that you start to improve your gut, because almost every disease process, everyone that I work with has an inflammation in their gut. And their gut is very unhealthy from all of the bad food that you've eaten. Let me go back to just switching to be gluten-free doesn't make you healthy. And that's where that fad comes in. Just going gluten-free doesn't make you healthy, but you can start to change the inflammation in your body, start to clean up your gut, your autoimmune disease, etc. There's always more than one thing that makes you sick, so remember that. In the write-up, the pamphlet about how easy it is to go gluten-free, I know I live in Wisconsin, and I used to love beer. I don't care for it so much anymore. I've really weaned myself off of it. First, because I needed to avoid the yeast, and the beers still have yeast in them. And then now when I've had them, I just don't care for it so much. But Wisconsin, anybody who's listening from here, I know you love your beer. There's gluten-free beers. And actually, the very first time I had a gluten-free beer, my dad brought it over and introduced Redbridge to me. And so that was my first alternative. But I've got a list of all different types of beers that are alternatives that are gluten-free. Now, one thing, if you love to have some beer, remember it still has calories, empty calories. You're not going to lose any weight going gluten-free when you substitute and are just eating junk all the time, even though it's gluten-free, or drinking your beers all the time. But what I've noticed is that on the market, there are a lot of not gluten-free beers, but less gluten beers. And I apologize, I'm forgetting what they're calling them, but they've put something else in the beer to make it tolerable, to make it more tolerable, but they didn't eliminate all of the gluten. So I'm pointing that out just for you to be aware. So Redbridge is a good one that you can get around here. So is New Grist. There's an India Pale Ale. Steadfast Beer makes an oatmeal cream stout. Sprecher makes Shakpero Ale. So there's a lot of good. There's even a dark, Groundbreaker dark ale if you like a really dark beer. Those are all going to be gluten-free, things that I put on the list. It's not an all-inclusive list. I don't know every beer out there. I did a little bit of searching as well, but beware that some of them are just lower gluten and not gluten-free. That's where the marketing gets confusing. You need to be sure it is not made with what three things? Wheat, barley, or rye. Okay? Now, when you first decide that you're going to go gluten-free, don't be making tons of changes all at once. You need to be able to concentrate on what you're doing. So it's hard at first. Make it manageable. Start reading food labels. Start substituting. Take it one step at a time. Keep snacks around that are easy. So when you're hungry, you got to run out the door. I can grab a Kind bar and I know I'm going to be fine. It's those times when you're really hungry or you don't have time, or it's kids night, it's sports night, and you're running between sports, and this maybe was your typical night where you did fast food. Fast food is not really food, people. It's horrible for you. it's not really giving you any kind of nutrition. And I'll encourage you to be planful for that. Either plan a different restaurant where you know you can have something safe, that's good food, that's gluten-free. We have a couple, probably 5 restaurants that we like to go to when we go out to eat. And those are the ones that we patron because we know they have good food. Lots of times they're organic and grass-fed as well. And we know they have good gluten-free options. So I never put myself in this situation where I'm like, okay, there's nothing to eat here at all. I guess I'm just going to starve, or I'm going to cave and I'm going to eat that anyway. But let me tell you, when you go anywhere, order a burger without the bun and you'll be fine, right? If worse comes to worse and you're in a situation at a restaurant, you didn't plan to go there, you're with a bunch of people, just order your hamburger without the bun. That's how I eat it all the time. It's not looked at as weird or anything like that. And once you get used to that, having your hamburger on a bed of greens instead of in a bun, it's great. So other key thing that you might not realize, there's a lot of sauces out there that can have gluten in them or where wheat is added. Your pasta sauces, a lot of gravies, even the stocks, if you get chicken stock or beef stock, mustard, sometimes they add a wheat flour in there too to make it, more and to be a little thicker and to last longer. So you might not be 100% gluten-free if you're getting those products and you have never had a chance to read the label. And then, like I was saying with the restaurants where we like to go, remember that you can still enjoy going out with people and socializing and doing what you want to do. And gluten-free food can be just as delicious as the regular food. You're just choosing better based on what's going on for you. I'm going to jump back just to, I talked about beer, but there's also other alcohols when you go out, when you're at a party. Gluten-free alcohol are usually your ciders, your wine, sherry, spirits, ports, and liqueurs are all going to be gluten-free. But your beer, lagers, stouts, and ales are all going to have some form of gluten in there. So the last thing that I wanted to show you, and then I will take a look at some of the other comments that I can hear everybody mentioning. I'm just going to show you some snacks. Okay, snacks, gluten-free snacks don't make you healthy. These are just snacks. We all like to have snacks sometimes, right? Sometimes it's going to be a couple of hours before you can eat. What can I crunch on? I need something a little sweet. I need something a little salty. And here are a couple of chips. So a great sweet potato chip made with coconut oil. So not one of the bad oils or not an ingredient on the back where it says, well, it might be palm oil or cotton oil or safflower oil and you don't really know what they made it from. This is sweet potatoes, coconut oil, and salt. Great. 3 ingredients. Fantastic. Good snack. Same thing here. These chips are made out of beans. How disgusting is that? But they're great. I mean, if somebody said, hey, you want this bean and a bean chip, would you jump on that? No, but these are great. I don't like this flavor. I'm not a chipotle kind of a chip person, but we're eating them in our family, and I like a lime flavor, I think, is one that I've been eating. But it's made out of black beans. Awesome. I hate black beans, so I get it in a chip. Then I got to tell you about these 2 chips. Lentil chips. First ingredient, lentil flour. How awesome is that to get away from corn, to get away from potato? But these are made out of lentils. Again, another bean or legume. And when I first had these, Nicole Garcia will remember, and these 2 next chips, I said, oh my God, do you remember putting those little funnels, the bugles on your fingers, and they were shaped like little bugles. These taste just like those if you had those when you were a kid. So I'm like, great, this is a fantastic new little snack. It reminds me of my childhood, and it's made out of lentils, for heaven's sakes. And then now this one is made out of corn, okay? It's a non-GMO, stone ground whole corn and sunflower oil. But these are way better snacks. The brand, way better. They're really good. Limited amount of ingredients as well. This is their nacho cheese flavor. Want to know what these taste like? They taste like Doritos. Okay, so Doritos are full of wheat and dyes and chemicals. So when you want to choose a better snack, again, it's still a snack. If you're eating all these snacks every day and you're trying to lose weight, you're not going to lose weight. You're still eating a ton of snacks. But this was a great snack when you're feeling like, oh, if I could just have a chip, way better chip. Again, still made out of corn. This is the nacho cheese, so there's some added things for that nacho cheese flavor. But it reminded me of eating one of those nacho cheese chips. Really good. So some great, easy examples for you about snacks. I just pulled these things out of the cupboard. All right, so let me go back through and see if any of you asked some questions. Again, if you'd like this in written material, sign up on my website and you'll get in my email list, and I'm trying to get out some email content information regularly. That's drkellyfelmer.com. And Samantha, you can order online directly from Sammy's as well. That's absolutely right. If you don't live close to one of those stores, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of nutrition stores that sell Sammy's, and this is one example of a sourdough, gluten-free. It's made out of millet. Again, yeast-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free. So if you have a bunch of allergies, this is the bread for you. Sammy's Bakery, S-A-M-I, is out of Florida. You can order directly from them. We freeze a lot of it, and so it gets a little bit dry when it's been in the freezer for a while. That's the only thing I don't like about it, and that's why I'm going to try to make more fresh for a while. So thanks, Samantha, for adding to that. Rhonda says, I love those chocolate kind bars. Get them at Target. Okay, fantastic. Good morning, Dr. Stephanie. Good morning, Charlotte and Amy. Oh, hi, Amy. Haven't seen you in a while. Love the lentil chips, right? Like, who would eat lentils? Oh, yay. They're good and they taste good. What is your favorite bread brand? Luda asked. Well, Luda, I've kind of gone through a couple of different things. I don't have a favorite one, to be honest with you. I don't eat a lot of bread. When I find myself tending to eat a little bit more, I had a sandwich with this or made this with my eggs, I don't feel well when I do a lot of grains, so it always steers me back away. So I don't have a favorite. If for all of the allergy reasons, Luda, this one is good. It does the best. It's light, and I think it's the most versatile. So if I had to say anything was my favorite, it was this. But what I'm doing is experimenting more. I'm making my own gluten-free flours, and I'm trying to make my own breads so they can be fresh. I'm looking for them to be more fresh. Whenever I buy Sammy's, it's either already been frozen or I buy it in bulk, so then I put a bunch in the freezer. And I grew up pulling my bread out of the freezer, and it was always freezer burnt. So that's one problem. I don't like that. That's the only reason I am tending away from Sammy's. Otherwise, I would say Sammy's is my favorite. Great. I'm glad you benefited, Dr. Stephanie. These are the kinds of things that I try to bring to people to give them real life. What do you do? How about some easy things? Just give me an example. That's what I'm trying to bring to you today. Good morning, Kathy. I use Namaste, but never get good results with bread. Would love to learn how to bake bread at home and switch my kids to gluten-free. Just start buying gluten-free, Kathy. They will all complain. They just will. They'll get over it. But again, if we can start making it at home and it's fresh, who doesn't love fresh bread, right? So I think maybe I have perfected nothing as far as making my own bread, but I'm just putting myself out there to say I want to start doing that. So if I find something that ends up working out great, I'll share it. We'll do this on a Monday and I'll give you my recipe and I'll tell you how I've perfected my bread. I've even made, you know what I love? I love those big fat pretzels that you dump in that horrific trans fat cheese. I love those big pretzels. That's something that I miss because you don't find those anywhere gluten-free. There are a couple of brands. You can find them frozen. It's not the same. But I have made them at home as well, and they turned out okay. They didn't look so nice, but they did turn out okay where I could taste that, oh, this is the taste I remember, and I need to perfect that. Working with gluten-free doesn't always turn out. It just doesn't. Namaste, great for buns and rolls. So when you're making your Thanksgiving, use Namaste to make your rolls because everything tastes like a roll with Namaste and they're so thick. But I am going to work on perfecting those pretzels because I miss the pretzels with the big chunks of salt on it. That was something that I used to love. That was a special treat. And I'm going to try to perfect some bread because we're all looking. Otherwise, Sammy's bread is my best go-to for gluten-free. Udi's is pretty good as well. Again, my kids don't like it because the crust on the outside is too hard. They don't like that. And it does have yeast and eggs in it. Okay, let's see. Anybody else say anything good? You're welcome, Luda. Gluten-free flour for baking. And okay, awesome. Charlotte, I like to use Bob's Red Mill gluten-free 1-2 baking flour found cheapest at Woodman's. Fantastic. The blend that I made yesterday, I bought all Bob's Red Mill. Okay, and Bob actually is starting to have some organic flours as well. They're $1 or $2 more is what I've typically seen. But the recipe that I used yesterday was a bag of brown rice, a bag of white rice flour, a bag of sweet flour, a bag of tapioca, and then some xanthan gum in there as well. But I'm trying it because it was so darn easy. I didn't have to measure everything out. I bought the bags. I mixed them all together. And again, my donuts turned out awesome. Okay, so we don't have donuts all the time, and they're definitely different than the donuts you're going to get at the bakery shop down the road. But when you're feeling like you need a treat, when you need something special, you don't have to give everything up just because you're going to be trying to be healthier, because you're trying to cut out certain things. Just remember, that's not a staple in our life. It was Sunday yesterday, and that was a special thing for us to make. But now I know I can do it, and it turned out okay. And the frosting was good, actually. That glaze that I put on those donuts, I actually took some strawberries. You know, strawberries are the end of the season right now, so my strawberries were not tasting very strawberry anymore, and I dipped my strawberries in the glaze that I used for the donuts, and it was awesome. So I'll share those recipes for whoever is interested because that one turned out pretty good. And I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you appreciate what I've shared with you. Make sure that you share it with others and just send me your questions. Send me things that you'd like to talk about, and I will be posting a video, or we'll be live again on Wednesday night. So I hope to see you there. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day. Have a great, great week. Happy Monday.